Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I got a little project I got to do a little research on today. Let me tell you what happened. I was using my Instant Pot last night to cook some corn on the cob to go with the dinner I had. And I noticed that when the pressure started building up inside the chamber, that there was a leak. There's a little cap on the top that is kind of a safety valve. In the event that the pressure gets too high, that will pop off and it'll drain the pressure so the thing doesn't turn into a bomb. Let me show you what we're dealing with. So this is a little safety valve right here I'm talking about. And basically what ends up happening is in the event that the pressure builds up too high, this thing pops off and it will vent. And like I said, it's just a good safety device. It's also part of the way you vent the thing under normal circumstances, because you press this little button and it lifts that part up. And that's what actually vents the pressure. The problem is when I got under pressure and the little pink button built up here, I had liquid coming out of here. I had steam coming out of here. And so it wasn't holding pressure. Now I'm not sure exactly what happened, and that's what I need to explore. Now I tried to fix it on the spot, and that was maybe not a very good idea. I would recommend don't trying to fix this thing once under pressure. I knew that there was enormously hot steam coming out of here, and so I went and got like a towel and just pushed, on top of it in the hopes that I could push that plug in. And it actually didn't work, and I actually ended up with a second-degree burn on my hand as a result of that. It was very, very painful. So, piece of advice, that isn't just boiling water coming out of there, it's superheated water. And I only made contact with it for maybe a tenth or a fifth of a second, and like I said, it hurt like you can't believe. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and restart the thing again with just water in it, and see if we can get it up to pressure, and whether maybe the problem was that I just didn't have this piece pushed down far enough. And that's all that needs to do. Could also be there's like a little O-ring or something in there that maybe is out of position or maybe needs to be replaced. But this is an important part of my cooking. I use it a lot, and I don't want to get to the point where I can't use it anymore. Or I know I have some sort of a problem with it. So first thing I'm going to do is put some water in there. We're going to see if we can bring it up to pressure, and if that solves the problem. If that is, then we're in good shape, and what I'm going to probably do is just take it apart, put it in the dishwasher, and give it a good thorough cleaning, because that might be what it is too. Alright, we are up to pressure, and there is clearly still a leak. I don't see steam coming out, but I can hear it coming out. And in fact, every time I jiggle the box a little bit, it's leaking a little bit. So, I'm going to move on to the next step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to vent this thing. I'm going to take it apart. We're going to clean out everything I can, and let's see if that solves the problem. Otherwise, I may have to get to the point where I just got to buy another one of those. So let's vent this thing, get it into the dishwasher, and see if that solves our problem. Now I'm hoping at this point that just a good thorough cleaning will be all that's necessary. I'll be honest, I do not clean this thing after every use, because probably 75% of the time when I'm cooking anything in there, it's just steaming vegetables. So the only thing that's actually making contact with any of the inner part of the pot is really, really hot steam, and that should actually be sterilizing and kind of cleaning things itself. I do try and clean it after I've done something more than steaming. For instance, when I do some sort of an entree, I did my gumbo in there recently, I did my tomato soup in there recently. I do try and clean up after that, because you never know what any of those solids might get in there and get in the way of something and prevent it from making a good seal. So hopefully doing just a good washing of this thing will solve the problem. Now taking this thing apart isn't really that complicated. There's two little parts on the inside that come off. There's this little strainer here which kind of keeps solid material from getting up into the vent portion of the system. And then there's also this little thing here. This little rubber piece here becomes the gap that closes the gap when the pink button comes up. So this thing just kind of peels off, and then the little pink button will drop out in your hand like that. And then what we got to do is we got to go onto the top side and pull this thing off. That's the actual vent piece. It's also very heavy, so don't drop that. And then we're also going to pull the O-ring out of there. And the O-ring is just kind of wedged in there. So just kind of pull it out, and the whole thing goes in the dishwasher. So I've basically taken everything off of this thing I can. This is the little pink button, and basically it's got this little rubber part in the bottom, and when the pressure goes up, the whole button lifts up, and this thing creates a seal around the opening so that the pressure can't leak out. I've got this thing off, and this thing actually is just the underside of that. That's just to make sure that you're not getting any solid material from anything you're cooking up into this vent valve, because if you get to the point where you plug this thing up, there's no way to vent this thing, and at that point it kind of becomes a little dangerous. So best way to do that is to put the little filter over the top of it to prevent that from happening. I've also taken the O-ring off, and we're just going to run all this stuff through the dishwasher. Alright, we're out of the dishwasher now. I've put the whole thing back together. The little pink button here works on the bottom. I've reconnected the safety valve on the top and the little screen on the bottom here. Hopefully this is going to work better now. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit more water in here. We're going to heat this thing up, and let's see if this thing does a better job now. Alright, so this thing's hit pressure now. Now I don't hear anything leaking from the actual safety valve. I do hear a little bit of leaking around the seam here, and I might need to go in there and wiggle the O-ring a little bit around. But I do think that this is working better. When I hit the table and stuff like that, it doesn't make as much noise. So I think that's really what needed to happen. I probably had a little bit of gunk in that valve, and it wasn't holding perfect pressure. There was just a tiny little bit of a leak in there. So I think I got that. That's probably just a lesson. You need to take the top on these things apart periodically and clean them really well, just to make sure that any food that may be in there maybe gets worked out of there, so you hold your pressure. The truth is, even if this thing is leaking just a hair around the O-rings along the side, it's not going to change the way the thing works, because as the heat goes in there, if you get a little bit leaking out, the heat creates more pressure in there, and it just kind of keeps everything up to date. So I think whatever the problem was, we got it straightened out. No more, hopefully, burns for me, and we can go on, continue using this thing. So I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night. Alright, so I was editing this video, and I started thinking about the leak I was still having a little bit along the O-ring, and I said that there's really only two reasons that would be. Either there's something unsmooth here, and there isn't. This thing is very, very smooth, so there shouldn't be any leaking happening along here. And I started thinking, you know what? Maybe it's just a problem with the O-ring. And the truth is, this thing came with a second O-ring. Now, they actually recommended, I guess, if you're a gourmet, that you might taste a little bit of other meals if you use, the same O-ring for different things. I don't really worry that much about it, so I've kind of just kept this one and not used it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try putting this one in to the Instant Pot, and let's bring it up to pressure again and see if maybe that was our problem. Alright, so here's the other O-ring I put in. It just slid right in very easily. They actually recommend in the directions that you use one for like sweet things and another for savory things, in case you're concerned about cross-contamination of flavors. But like I said, I've never really used the other one, so let's just put this one in there, bring it up to pressure, and see what happens. If that's the case, then we just know that from time to time you're going to have to replace the O-rings. That's possible to do. You can get those from the Instant Pot company. So let's bring it up to pressure again, see what happens. Okay, that was the solution. We are up at pressure right now. I don't hear any leaking happening anywhere now. So yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to replace the O-ring. So that's the thing. If you're detecting a leak here, be very careful if it's under pressure to keep your hand out of the way so you don't get burned. Pull that thing off, pull the little pink button off, pull the O-ring off, give it a good cleaning. If you're having a leak around here, you may have a faulty O-ring and need to replace it. Like I said, my Instant Pot came with 2 of them, and so I just swapped over to the new one, and that's working very, very well. I don't hear any leaking at all. So there you go. We did finally solve this one.